Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Loving the Game. I'm Jacques, your host from Yellow Cap Sports. And today I've got a very great, interesting guest with me, former Protea, played a lot of games for South Africa. And also, he's still around and doing a lot of great things on the South Coast as well. Symcox, how are you doing?
I'm very good, thanks, man, Jacques. Very good. Outstanding and loving the South Coast, as you know.
Oh, geez, you guys are so spoiled with the weather and everything. I wish I was down there and not here in freezing Gauteng. But Pat, thanks. First of all, thank you so much for joining us. I really, really appreciate your time. What are you up to these days? Besides, well, I mean, obviously we're all in lockdown. But I mean, what does Pat Symcox do these days?
Well, I live on the South Coast and I own some of the Remax franchises called Remax Coast and Country. And we've got a couple of branches. And so I've been in property for almost, over 10, 12 years now. So I own a couple of Remax branches and we service the area between Scottborough right through to Port Edward. We have got a whole lot of agents and that's what we do. So I've got that. And then I also own a water business, actually. Bottling spring water business. So we do that as well, called Donne. And that's what I do on the South Coast. So I don't have much time for other than a bit of golf, but a lot of work.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, obviously, living right next to the ocean. I mean, I've been following you on Twitter, and I think something that pops up more than often is the view that you have there. And I honestly think you just do it to make the rest of us like.
I do. No, I do. You know, the Bull supporters have got to see the view, man. You know. I live right on the beach here at a little tiny village called Mtulumi, which is very close to Selborne, between Pennington and Aberdeen. So I've lived here for over 25 years, and I live very close to the beach. Done some developments here, and very happy here. This is my life here, and out of here I work and travel up and down the coast to manage our businesses.
Oh, that's awesome. But so obviously, as you know, the show is called Loving the Game, and that's what we talk about is your love for sport. And as we all know, most of us know, I mean, you well known for your cricket, escapades and stuff. But let's go back to the beginning. I mean, you were born in Kimberley, and that's where everything started for you in life, basically. Where did you fall in love with sport? Was it cricket at first, or was it cricket from the word go?
Yeah, I was born and bred in a little town in Kimberley in the Northern Cape, you know, and my family is very sporty. I'm one of my family, three generations have played first-class cricket. My father played, I played, and my son has played. And our whole family, my uncle, and a whole lot of people, I played a lot of sport at school. I also played squash, provincial squash, and I also played provincial badminton at school. So I played for Griquas while I was at school, and I played Griquas squash and Griquas badminton while I was at school. And then I played squash on the circuit in South Africa for a couple of years, and then and played badminton as well. And then I'm obviously trying to play cricket as well. So eventually it got to a place where I had to decide which one I was going to specialize in. And in those days, there was really no professionalism in sport. So we ended up working, and I ended up playing for Griquas for a while. Yes. And then once I played for Griquas I played from I was 17 in my matric year. Then I went off to the army, came back, played a bit, and then I got an option to go to Pretoria to go play for Northern Transvaal in those days. Yeah, so I went up there and I played there for 6 years for Northerns. And we had a great time. I played under Lee Barnard was captain, and Anton Ferreira and Noel Day and Fani de Villiers and all of us played together. And then from there, I went back to Kimberley. By then, I'd worked and studied a bit, and I ended up going back to Kimberley to open hospital. I specialized in private hospitals, and the group is now Mediclinic, but in those days it was a different name.
Oh, wow.
But, so I went back to Kimberley and I opened a hospital there. And then while I became really involved in private hospitals, and I ended up moving myself, really. I ended up having to manage 4 of them, and one of them was the Pietermaritzburg one. So I moved myself up to Pietermaritzburg, and I opened that hospital and managed that. And then while I was here, I actually retired from cricket because I just couldn't work and play cricket. And in those days, cricket wouldn't pay you for a living, and it was 3-day cricket. And I played a couple of games in Natal, and then I retired. And then when we got back into world cricket, Graham Ford was the coach, and he phoned me up and said, "Listen, I know you've played cricket. Come out of retirement. Why don't you try and play for Natal for us?" And I lived in Maritzburg, and myself and John T. He was a young boy, him living in Maritzburg. So we travelled through to Durban. We used to travel through for the first season, and try and play. And eventually, I just couldn't cope managing the hospital and play, so I retired. And then I stopped for about a half a season. And the next year, the beginning of that season, Graham spoke to me, and I joined up again. And we got back into world cricket, and they picked a team, and I was in it. So decision time came again. Do I carry on working, or do I play cricket? Big decision, because I was managing a couple of hospitals. I had shares as well in them, and I had to make a call. And I'd always wanted to play cricket for South Africa, but unfortunately, I was 32. I was on the back end of my life. I wasn't going to play for a long time. It was 1 or 2 games that I was maybe going to play, I thought, but I thought I'd go and play. And then next minute, I got picked again and again and again. And I couldn't run a hospital and play cricket and travel around the world. So I then gave up the hospital business, and the journey I lived on for 8, 9 years of playing for South Africa. Ended up playing 100 times, which I was blessed to do, But I was I was past my prime when I was selected to play for South Africa. I was 32. Dave Richardson was past his prime. He was 33. So at the end of the day, we were really old, like today. 34, you've retired, Graham Smith and the lot. We only started then, but we were quite old. I would love to have played when I was 21 or 22, but unfortunately, it wasn't available to us. So I was very blessed that I played. And then once I had finished and retired, the first thing, the natural way to go was to go into commentary. So then I was approached by SuperSport, and I went into commentary, and I commentated for SuperSport for many years, and then also around the world, for ESPN, the Indian productions, for another 10 years. But that was a life that I didn't really want much of. It was a great life. It was fantastic to commentate, and I'm a student of cricket, and I love it. But unfortunately, it meant traveling a lot and being away, and I couldn't really build something for the long term. I had to stay in commentary. I didn't really want to do that. So I moved out of that and moved into something else, which I'm doing today.
Yeah, shucks. I mean, that's a great summary of basically your life so far. But I mean, I want to obviously take you back and share some memories with you that I found when I was digging around to see what I can find about you. And I found some interesting stuff. I mean, I think you were very, as you mentioned already, you were very blessed, to obviously play for South Africa, first of all. But I think also in the times that you played for them was also a great era for South African cricket as well. I mean, you played under the likes of Kepler Wessels and, Hansie Cronje as well, which, are 2 guys that I admire a lot, regardless of whatever. And, but I mean, just to go back, even, to the beginning days, your first thing for South Africa was an ODI in Sri Lanka, and 3 days later you played your first test. So that was actually quite cool. I didn't when I was going through, I was like, sure, that sounds a bit weird, but yeah, that's how it happened. And sorry if I don't look at you because I've got so many notes here. It's quite frightening. But I was just before, when you managed the hospital, and as you said, prior to your cricketing days, you also involved with you were like an agent, a sports agent for quite a
while. That was when I was playing. Actually, in the middle of that playing, I lived in Durban. I moved to Durban from Pietermaritzburg, and I got involved in a company called Masters International with a guy called Keith Griffiths. And really, what we did, we set up sports management in South Africa, really. So we started off, and a couple of myself and him, and we ventured into managing. So we ended up, I then managed most of the cricketers, save John T and Sean, and I can tell you great stories about their first contracts. I put them together, and I remember Sean Pollock when he first was 19, 20. I had to negotiate his back contract, but I was playing at the time, and I was also the players' representative for the South African cricket team. So I was the guy, the link between the board, Dave Richardson, and myself looked after South African Cricketers Fund, but and then the players' representative. So I was managing all the players in there, John T, Gary Kirsten, Andrew Hudson,
Yeah.
everyone managing their individual business and trying to put deals together and their contracts.
Was this while you were playing with them?
Yeah, and then also, then I also was managing later on the rugby guys. So we managed the Sharks, and we managed all the Springbok players, and Francois Pinault was doing the Rugby World Cup. I was very involved there. And then a couple of guys' benefits, Farney's benefit, Sean Pollock's benefit. I did all of those. And so I managed a lot of sportsmen, including Mark Fish. In fact, I kind of put Mark Fish on the road, It's a great story. One of the great stories of all time. But be it as it may, there was a good couple, one of our swimmers, who went on to become an Olympic swimmer. I was instrumental in helping him get him going, Terence Parkin, when he was his dad came to see me and we helped him. But Mark Fish is a great story, when Mark was only about 16. we wanted to sign him up. And I spoke to Clive Barker and said, who do you think is going to be the next wonderful soccer player that I should manage in South Africa? And he said, there's a guy called Mark Fish. He said, Mark Fish is a young guy, 16, and I think he's going to be a great player. You should try and sign him up. So I got hold of Mark, and he flew down to Durban, and I met with him, and we signed a contract. I'd gone up to Pretoria for something, and I met him there, and I said to him, what would you like? What would you like in your life? And in those days, I think he was 16, and he was on a contract, and I think he was getting 1,000 Rand a month from Puma and 1,000 Rand from someone. He was getting 3 grand a month as a young player, And he said he wanted he wanted 2 things in his life. One was a TV, and the other one was he wanted an Oakley sponsor. He wanted an Oakley pair of Oakley glasses. And I was sponsored by Oakley, so I gave him my glasses, and I said, fly down to Durban, and I signed a deal with him and sent all his stuff off to an agent. The company got all the stuff together, and Master sent all the stuff up to outside the country. We sent it off to Man United. We sent to a couple of places. We ended up sending it to Lazio, and we ended up doing a deal for him for Lazio. And I think he was earning 3 grand a month. And when he signed for Lazio, I think it went to 1.2 million US.
Oh wow!
And we got it going. And so Mark, whenever I see Mark, I remind him of the time that we put the deal together. So and remember, there were many deals along the way like that. We also managed some of the golfers. Nick Price was involved there, Tony Johnston. So I had a good grounding as to managing the sportsmen, and also as the players representative at the time when we first got back into world cricket in 1992, 93. The first tour was to Sri Lanka, and the United Cricket Board at that time, as it was called, didn't really have any contracts in place. So between David Richardson and myself, we sat down and negotiated with the board on behalf of the players, because most of us didn't. We had jobs. We were all working, in some form or another, but we couldn't go away for a month and 2 months at a time. I was managing hospitals. David was a partner in a law firm, and we were going to Australia for 2.5 months. Then it was India, and then it was Sri Lanka. So we needed contracts. So we really sat with Ali and put the contracts together and formed the whole basis of it, what it is today. So it was a great ride through there, and I was able to then commentate after that and impart some of the experiences that I had. I also managed Gary Kirsten through his India and got him appointed to India, and then managed his contract for his 4-year stint in India as the World Cup coach.
So when did you stop basically being an agent, if I may ask?
Yeah, when I started, there was a time when I just got to a place where I was commentating, I couldn't do it, and I stopped.
Okay.
But I managed Gary for a while, and then I managed Gary through his India time, and then when he came back, I negotiated his contract with South African Cricket as the agent there, and then I also didn't have the time. I was building a business and a lot of things on the go. So my son actually helped me, and he got involved, and him and Gary are partners now. So.
Okay. Well, talking about your son, one of the things that I saw is your son also at a time of playing provincial cricket for the Dolphins, and also your father also played first class cricket. And I mean, your family is one of 10, or one of 10 where 3 generations, have played first-class cricket, which is quite something. And I was trying to think of someone else, which the only one I could think of must have been the Pollocks.
They got 2 legs. There are 2 of them, because we should remember Graham and Peter's both sons, Graham Pollock and Peter Pollock's dad, which is Sean's grandfather. He was a wicketkeeper and he played for Eastern Province. Then he had 2 sons, Graham and Peter, and both of them, their sons have played first-class cricket. Vincent van der Bijl is another one. Vincent is actually the last guy in it, believe it or not. So yes, there's a couple, but not many. It's very rare to get 3. You think of the fathers and sons. The Neil Mackenzie's dad was Kevin. So Kevin's dad's got to play now. Kevin's son's got to play now, and it takes quite a long time to build that. So let's see. There's a good couple. There's 10, as I say, but we'll see.
That's really.
Like Mackay and Tini's son's coming through now, Mackay and Tini's son. But now Mackay and Tini's son's got to produce a son that also plays, if that makes sense, which takes a long time, to do that. That's quite a feat. It's not every family that's got that.
Yeah. So, back to obviously you played your first ODI against Sri Lanka, and in that game you got 2 wickets for 28, which, I actually looked at your stats. It was bloody impressive. Even though, I think so. It was interesting when I heard you say, you were actually past, your prime when you played, but looking back, I think you, besides being past your prime, you were obviously so experienced, and you were a really good bowler, in my opinion, and so like I said, and 3 days after your first ODI, you played your first test as well.
What did I score in that test? What did I get there? I can't remember.
Your first.
I got a 50. I got a 50 in my first test, and 48 in the
48 and 21 in your first test.
Was it 48? Okay. 48 and 21. I got two or 3 wickets there. I remember because I got 2 in a row. Right up in the first night. I remember that.
Yeah.
We drew that test, I think.
Yes.
We drew the test. In fact, that's a very controversial test match that happened there, because that's the test match that John T. Rhodes got his first 100 in that test match. And I batted with him right at the. He got 200, and I batted with him. And Clive X team batted for about an hour and a half after that.
Yeah.
For quite a long time to actually save the test. In that test match, the Sri Lankan captain was Arjuna Ranatunga, and he got 100. I think he got 130.
Yes.
But he was out caught and bowled of Hansi Cronje early on, and he was given not out. And they said it was a bump ball, and I was pretty sure it wasn't. So there was a lot of animosity there, and so we ended up drawing the test, and then the second test was at the SEC, and that's the famous test where Brett Schultz got 10 wickets in the match. I think 10 or 11 wickets in the match. We won that. And the last one was rained out, so we won the series 1-0. That was the first Test series back in world cricket. We did play a Test match on the West Indies on the way in '92 when they came back somewhere, but there was no series. So the first series was in Sri Lanka, and we won that series. And from there we came back, and we'd been at home about 3 weeks when they announced we got to go to Australia. So in those days, and still in this day, I think they set up the test program or schedule in the world is worked out 10 years at a time. So when South Africa got back into world cricket, we weren't in the schedule because we were never part of it. So when they announced we back, they then had to find places to slot us in. So it wasn't easy, and so they slotted us in wherever they could. So we didn't really know, like today, they know next year, this time they're going to England. Next year, this time they're going to Australia. We didn't really know in the beginning. So we went off to Sri Lanka, and we came back, and we weren't the Proteas then. We were just the South African cricket team, really.
Yes.
And we came back, and we've been back about 3 weeks. They announced the team, and we've got to go to Australia for the first tour to Australia. So they picked that team, and off we went for 2.5 months to Australia. And I think we went there as we had a set of wickets with a ball. It was like the South African team. Only after that we came up with the Proteas. So, interesting times, very interesting times.
Tell me, Pat. I'm just gonna try and stick to the ODIs for now.
Yeah,
I mean, you played 80 games for South Africa, and from '93 until your last match was, geez, my notes are
99,
all over the show here, but it was like, what was it? '99 was your last match
99. Yeah,
for South Africa. So it was a decent time, especially taking your age. And I mean, I remember that was quite a big topic always, because you were, as you said, you were
from day
close to
one, I was
prime.
going to be dropped. From day
Yeah,
one, we still, and
you
it lasted
probably
8
never
years.
knew whether you were playing again or whatever, so you just took it as it came. But I mean,
Yeah.
you had some great moments in that time. I want to take you to a specific match, Australia SCG '97. You remember that game?
No, tell me.
Okay, so the reason I'm bringing it up was because that match was quite controversial as well. I mean, you were being thrown and pelted with a lot
Yeah,
of stuff, projectiles.
yeah.
Amongst those projectiles was a chicken. I mean, what happened there? What caused that?
When we went to Australia, it's a very tough place to play because the crowds were massive in those days.
Hmm.
That they still are. If
Yeah, yeah.
you play at the ECG, it's full. If you play at the MCG, 100,000 people. And South African cricket was a big head-to-head with Australia in those days.
Yeah, yeah.
I was the guy that kind of was the leader of being hard to the Australians.
Okay.
So the Australian cult figure that they disliked of South African cricket was me, which was fine because I was the guy that had to go and field on the boundary always. And being the experienced guy, I was able to maybe verwerk it, or whatever you want to use the word. I was able to digest it and deal with it a bit easier than some of the younger guys. So um, where there's Castle Corner in our town, it's called the Bay or the Hill or wherever. I was the guy that had to go and really field it. So when you go down there, you're gonna catch some abuse. So you're standing on the boundary of your own. So I would give it to them, big time.
Okay.
I'd give it back to them, and the old convict, get lost. And so I'd give it back and all the abuse. And they used to throw things onto the field. One of the things they do is they throw a ball on, tennis ball onto the field in front of you. So out of the crowd comes a tennis ball. So you pick up the ball and you throw it back in the crowd, because it's
Yeah,
somebody's ball. But that's just a game, because the minute you do that, they throw another one.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
they
yeah.
throw it just in front of you. So while you're walking in with a boundary, there's two tennis balls in front of you. So you pick them up, throw them back in the crowd, they throw them back again. And eventually it becomes a game. So then you keep the ball because you don't want to throw them back. Then they start singing, "We want our ball back." So the whole crowd is singing, and I'm going to get lost. And then they started throwing things onto the field. And one of them was a whole, like a whole chicken that somebody had eaten, the carcass.
Oh,
So
okay.
I checked this carcass being thrown onto the field, a chicken carcass. And obviously the television cameras panned onto the things that were flying onto the field at me. And one of them was this chicken carcass. And I couldn't leave it there. So I like pick it up and throw it back in the ground, then comes back again. So it was
Yeah,
a chicken carcass that they threw at me. But we had some fun times. And I mean, Australia's a great place to tour. It's a
yeah, yeah.
tough place to tour, but a lot of fun. And if you can win a couple of games and get it going, then it's even better place. And we were able to do that, through the 90s. The first tour was 93, 94. We drew the series, which was quite amazing. And we should have won it because we had Daryl Hare that gave all the decisions against us.
Yeah,
The
I
98
remember.
tour, 97, 8, 98 tour, from a test match point of view, we could have done better. Port Collie bowled really well. I dropped a catch, a couple of guys. It was Mark Wall. Hit the wickets. He should have been given out. He didn't. He just went on to make 130. Changed the test match. I
Yeah,
thought
I
we
saw
were
that
pretty
video.
competitive in the one days, always with Australia. So it was good.
Tell me, teammates that you enjoyed during your time in the ODI setup.
Well, as I say, I started in '93 and then I ended up in '99, and through the beginning stages, some of the guys were at the end of their career. So I enjoyed playing with Kepler. He was a friend of mine. I'd known him. Him and I played cricket against each other when we were standing at 7 for Free State versus Crickets, Grey College. So I'd known Kepler all my life, and I enjoyed playing with him. And then
Yeah,
as time, I enjoyed playing with Dave Richardson. He's been a friend to me for many years. and I enjoyed playing with him. But then as time unfolded, some of the older guys that were my age fell out, which was sad. Even Fonny, eventually, he fell out. And there was a couple of guys that were out the system, and I was able to stay in a little bit longer. Maybe I was fitter than them, I don't know. But be that as it may, we started to get the younger generation started coming in. So then the Gibbs, Callis, Boucher, Klusener, Pollock, that era started to join me. And it became quite hard because here I was 37, 38 years old, and my teammates were 21, 23, 25. So it was the training, was Hansie, under Hansie, Bob Woolman was coach. So the role I then took on was to be more of a senior fatherly figure. And that's kind of the role that I played for those younger guys. So, as I say, when Polly came along with Zulu, Jacques Callis, Herschel, Bouty. I mean, that's why today they all call me uncle, Uncle Pat. But eventually I was playing in a team where I was 37, 38.
Yes.
And running, and we had practice sessions and, doing all the things, going on tours. And as I say, I was past my cricketing prime, but it was even more than that. It was mentally very demanding because I had to try and compete with a lot of young guys. And it gets to that point where when you're looking at 39, and all your mates in the team are 25. And co. You don't enjoy it anymore. You want to move on, and that's kind of how it ends. And it ends like that for everyone.
Yeah. Tell me, Pat, I mean, you were also one of the only few to actually win an ICC event for South Africa, the Champions Trophy in, when was that, 98? 98 in Bangladesh, of all places. I mean, so much for us not being able to play on the subcontinent. But, I mean, there we go. You guys were up against the West Indies. You took one catch, and you even opened the bowling. I mean, those were clearly...
Yeah. Many people don't know that,
Yeah, when I read it, I was quite surprised when I saw that today. I was like, oh, wow, geez, you see those things happen now in the IPL, these kind of things today. But, I mean, back then it was unheard of for a spinner to open the bowling.
Absolutely. I think towards from the mid-90s, 95, 96, through that era, it saddened me that we didn't win a World Cup. And I say that because I really honestly think that team and that era was good enough to do it. Hansie was a forward-thinking guy. Bob Woolman was a good one-day coach. There were some great all-rounders. When you put the all-rounders that we had, just a Pollock, Klusener, Callis, in that mix, and the guy like Hansie who could bowl, there was Dale Benkenstein who could bat, and we had a lot of really good one-day players. Gary Kirk, there's a lot of good one-day players in that era. And what was it called? The Champions Trophy. And the Champions Trophy it was the World Cup, but without the small countries. It wasn't like a build-up. So it was the top 6 countries, and we went to Bangladesh and we played in Dakar, and we ended up winning it. And the night that we played with the one-day, we had a thing up our sleeve that against the West Indies that I would open the bowling, but we didn't broadcast it too easily. We walked onto the field. We let everybody measure their run-ups. The batters walked out to bat. And right at the last second, I walked over, took my cap off, took the ball, and waited. And the batters were ready. And suddenly, they were looking at each other thinking, well, hang on, this isn't what we thought was going to happen. When you're looking at in that team, I think there was Alan Donald was there. Alan Dawson was an amazing swing fast bowler for Steve Elworthy. I think he was in the side. So we had some really good fast bowlers, Callis, Pollock, Klusener, all of those were in the side. Yet we were going to go with the spinner, and we thought it would turn, but we also thought it would really surprise them. And they kind of blocked the first over of mine and didn't really know do we have a go at this guy? Do we block him?
Yeah.
And we bowled 2 or 3 overs. And before they could work it out, jerked me off, put Donald on, and they threw them, actually. And we ended up winning the match and then winning the trophy. And I'm actually quite proud of that because, a lot of people say, South Africa never won a trophy around the world or whatever. But there was one that we genuinely played really well and won it.
Yeah, no, definitely. We've got a question here from Avi Reddy. I'm not sure if it's that actual game, but he says, what was it like bowling at Clayton Lambert? He had a run-up while batting.
Yeah, Clayton Lambert, if I'm not mistaken, he was a left-hander, and he had a very open stance. So I didn't have a problem with bowling. My whole life on the subcontinent, I loved bowling to left-handers, especially the ball turned away. And I never felt threatened by Clayton Lambert in any shape or form. I loved it.
How do you feel about the West Indies of today?
Well, I think they've been in a rebuilding phase, and there's a lot of changes that have happened in their lives, in their country, in the cricketing world of the West Indies. I don't think it's the same strength as what it was in those days.
Yeah.
I still believe that the side that came to play in South Africa in about 1998, and I know that they had a great side through the 70s and whatever, but the 98 team that toured South Africa, and we actually won the series 5-0 and 6-1 in the one days. If I look back at that side in history today, some of the greatest batsmen and bowlers that have ever played for the West Indies actually played in that series. We're talking about Ambrose and Walsh opened the bowling. Carl Hooper was the spinner. You had Brian Lara, Jimmy Adams, and Chanderpaul. If we look at the run scorers there, Chanderpaul, one of the all-time run scorers. Brian Lara, one of the greatest ever. Ambrose Walsh. The team, the coach of the team was Malcolm Marshall. The late Malcolm Marshall was the coach. The manager was Clive Lloyd. And so it's a very unwritten, it's a hidden and not often spoken about win by South Africa. In South Africa, 5-0 against that side was a hell of a performance,
Yes, indeed.
I was lucky to be part of that. And the one day as we won 6-1. And the only one we lost was in East London, I think. I think Chanderpaul got 140 in that one day. It's the only one we lost in the whole tour. And at that time, there were some seriously good players playing for the West Indies. So I'm proud that we were part of that. But then they all retired, and it was time to bowl again, and they haven't really rebuilt to the same strength.
Tell me, Pat, I'm not sure. Ravi's got another question. I'm not sure if this is ODI or if it was a test, but it was obviously when you guys played Pakistan in '97, where, as you see, SA had much trouble with Mushtaq. 90 for 8, in the memory serves right. Mushtaq almost bowled you with the ball going through the stumps. Do you recall that?
Yeah, it's a very famous thing that happened in Pakistan, Ravi. And we were in trouble. I'd gone into bat, and we were in trouble when I never had a problem facing Mushi. Mushi, I actually liked facing Mushi as a bowler. I could read him, so I was comfortable with him. And he bowled a ball it stayed a bit low. It was a straight one. It wasn't a Google, and it wasn't a leg. We skidded on. And I went back. And as I went back, I missed it. And I knew it was middle stump. And when I missed it, and I turned around, it hadn't bowled me. And the umpire called dead ball, and we walked over, and the ball had gone through the wickets. And what had happened throughout the day, as the ball was being thrown in, the wicketkeeper was breaking the stumps and putting the stumps together again, and they were stretching the stumps. And you could actually take the ball and put it through. And I kid you not, if I took a hair, and a hair would not have fitted on either side of the ball and the stumps.
Wow.
And you put it, and there was no space between them. And for some divine intervention, it went through the stumps. So I carried on batting, and in that test match, it saved us, because I ended up getting 81, and Gary Kirsten got 100, and we got out of trouble, and we saved the test. We got into a better place, and we actually ended up winning the test match through that. And because of that, we won the test match and then won the series. That was the series decider, that test match. So it was a critical point. The ball went through the wickets, and they say in history of test cricket, they've never seen the ball go through the wickets without the bails coming off. Obviously, it can clip the wicket on the side or bump it on the top, but not through the wickets. Never seen that. Lucky. Very lucky. Must all the years of clean.
Yeah. Just to reflect on a few moments in your ODI career, also, that Australian game we spoke about at the SCG, you actually won your first man of the match for South Africa. scoring. I mean, what was the stuff there? They say won by 67 runs. You were out, not out for 27. And I mean, you had a great bowling performance, 4 for 28, not bad at all. And as I said, man of the match. Your other man of the match performance was against England at Edgbaston, where you smacked a solid 51 of 39 odd balls, which just for what it matters, I mean, at 2 fours and 4 sixes. I mean, I remember very well in your career, you liked smacking the ball. It was you might have been a bowler, but you weren't too shy of putting in, the wood, as they would say. I mean, was that just being part of the tail enders and slogging away?
When I first started playing cricket as a 17, 18-year-old, first-class cricket for Griquas, and then for Northern Transvaal, I batted at 3.
Okay.
First of all, opened the batting and then batted at 3. So for my career as a young cricketer, I either opened or batted 3. And I batted at 3 and 4 throughout my 20s. So as I got older, so I moved down the order. But remember, when I made I retired twice. Yes. I retired the first time when I was 28 because I moved back to Kimberley out of Pretoria to go and open a hospital. So I was 28 when I retired, and at that time I was playing for Northern Transvaal and I was batting at 5. So when I came back, I really focused on my bowling, but I always felt that I was more of a batsman than a bowler because I'd grown up as a batsman. So I didn't think it left me. It just gave me a better understanding when I was older and I was batting at 8, 9, 10. I didn't ever see myself as a non-batsman. I always saw myself as a batsman.
Yeah, you backed yourself.
Yeah. So when I started understanding the business of spin and bowling more, and you obviously neglect your bowling, your batting. You obviously neglect that because you spend hours trying to perfect the skill of bowling.
Yeah.
And you slip down the order. But I always try to keep a hand in batting, and I understood how it worked because I'd been a batsman. It makes a hell of a difference when you understand how the batting side hangs together because of having been a batter when I was younger. So that stood me in good stead when I was batting at the end. And I always used to think, if you Hansie and I used to often chat, and he'd say, from number 8, 9, 10, 11, all of us, can we have a goal of scoring 25? Just 25.
Okay.
And so, and that was my deal with him in test matches, that I would try and score 25. And if everybody scored 25, numbers 8, 9, 10, 11, you have a decent back-end partnership. So that was my focus through the test matches in my time, was try and score 25. And if you can average 25 as a back-end tail bowler, you've done pretty well. And I think I managed to average 29 in test cricket, I think.
Sure.
So if you average 29 or 30 as a number, 8, 9, 10, 11, it makes a massive difference to the players that are before you, because then you start to see partnerships build. That's when that's when number 8, 9, and 10 start to put on a 60-run partnership, an 80-run partnership, because of the guy that makes the contribution. If Dale Steyn makes 30, somebody's batting with him is getting 50. And so you end up having 80-run partnerships. That's how we kind of saw it in those times.
So, Pat, let's talk about your test career.
No, there's not much to talk about, man.
Oh, well, there's 20 games. It's not that bad.
20 tests, yeah.
Yeah, or 20 tests. Sorry, not games. But, also started against Sri Lanka, as I've mentioned already. First game, scored 69 runs in total, 3 wickets. But obviously the famous one that everyone talks about is, when you got your 108 against Pakistan in Joburg. And besides that, I mean, a record that still stands today with you and Mark Bouch, a 9th wicket partnership of 195 runs. I mean, that was a 63-year-old record that you guys basically broke, on that day. Of all days, Valentine's Day. Was there something promised?
That's correct. Was Valentine's Day. Yeah, it's a long time ago. I mean, how old's that record now? 23 years? And it was broken. Yeah. What was it? 63-year record, was it?
Yeah,
something like that.
63 years.
It was a long record.
The record was set up in 1935. I didn't write down the names of the guys that set it up,
Yeah.
but I mean, I think the
But it'll
importance
be
is
interesting to see. I'm always interested to see, when it's going to be broken. I don't think it's if, it'll be a when. Although it is becoming quite harder because, I don't know. I always look at the number 10s nowadays, and I always look at it, well, can he, because to get a 195 run partnership in Test cricket, the number 10 for the 9th wicket, that is, it's the world record for the 9th wicket. So it means number 10's got to make a sizable contribution. And at one stage, I really thought that Dale and Steyn, he got close in the one Test match in Australia, and they were going, and he got a 70 or something like that. And I thought, if anybody, I'd like Dale to have broken it, because
what a guy.
To be broken. And I thought at the time they would do it. And then there was another one that was getting close with Sri Lanka at one stage. But it's getting quite tough, to score almost 200 for the 9th wicket is quite a feat. It's not easy now with reverse swing, because number 9, 10, 11 now, they often get cleaned up.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of runs in those guys at the tail. But I mean, what was going through your mind at that stage? I mean, you're coming in at 7, 8.
Well, what was going through my mind was Charles Actor was running in at 150 kilometers an hour, and we hadn't seen him, and he was seriously quick. And it was at the Wanderers, and the Wanderers is traditionally a quick, was in those days a really quick bouncy track. So we hadn't seen him, and we batted first. And out of the blue, when we looked again, we had lost 8 wickets for 160. They were being blown away. I mean, I remember the first morning, we all sat down in our chairs at the Wanderers in those fancy chairs. And I think Adam Bacher and Gary Kirsten went out to open the batting. And they walked out there, and we were sitting having our tea when he ran in and he bowled the first ball. Like, you could just see everybody go, hang on a second, where are those arm guards, can I borrow your pad, and everybody put their tea down and thought, well, hold on a second. This guy's seriously quick. He had those long hair and had a blue armband thing up to here, his elbow, and he's running almost a side screen, man, and it's been taking off, So when we looked, we were 160 for 8, and we were in serious trouble. I had to went into bat and just hung around and knocked it around, and suddenly we started to get out of it. And on the other side was Waka Yunus, and Waka Yunus himself wasn't too sloppy, but he wasn't in the same class as for speed in that time. So I was happy. We got through it the night, we got through it the next day, and Bouchy and I stuck in there and hung in there and played and missed and knocked it around, and eventually the wicket got a bit flatter, and then we started to understand where we were going, and we batted damn well. I think we batted pretty well. We took our chance, Klein Mushtaq. So Klein was bowling, we hit him for a couple of runs, and suddenly you're getting close to the record, and we started to know that, and I wanted to, I knew there's one chance I'm going to have in my life to really, once I got close to the 70s and 80s, was to make sure I go close here. I'd got an 81 before. I'd got a couple of 70s. I'd got a couple of 50s. But I never had the real chance like that. And so I had to button that down. So when I got into the 90s, obviously it was very stressful because I didn't want to lose a wicket at 93 in that close halftime. So buttoning that down, I think I took a single for the last 10 runs. I just remember thinking, no risk, just take the singles and stay with me, Bouchy, because the number 11, I think, was Alan. So, hold on a second, I got to stick, boy. And once I got to 100, then, obviously we got to about 320 or 330 or something. So, but it was, I'm blessed to have been able to give him that chance, to go out there and bat and get 100. It's something I'm proud that I was able to do, and hold the record for this long with a wonderful guy in Mark Boucher. And Boucher's a wonderful guy and doing great things, and I love him dearly. And I'm pleased that it's with Boucher.
Listen, I know you're a big supporter of Mark, especially, when he got appointed now as the Proteas head coach, and you were quite vocal about it as well. And I think it was a great move by Graham and the guys to do that. And I think we'll have a definite chat about that just now. I just want to obviously, as you mentioned, when your cricketing career came to an end, you went into commentating for a while. You mentioned obviously the stresses that went along with it, having to do your, work with the hospitals and stuff that became a bit too much for you. But what were some standout moments from a commentator's perspective for you?
Well, I was lucky, I made the transition straight away, and I worked for SuperSport for quite a long time, and did all the shows, from extra cover through to the Afrikaans. I actually commentated in Afrikaans for about 4 years, both English and Afrikaans, and do the BFP show with Fani, do the extra cover show with Mike Hazeman all the years, and then travel to all the matches and all the test matches for South Africa, and then contracted outside and traveled to places in India and Sri Lanka. I've done 3 World Cups, and I met some wonderful people, and I teamed up really with somebody who took me under his wing, was Tony Gregg, and I became really very close to Tony. And so wherever he worked, we worked together, whether it was India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. I worked with him around the world, contracted to ESPN, spent many nights and many months in Singapore at the head office working for ESPN, Star Sports, which a lot of it wasn't coming back here, but the India series or the Pakistan series or a Sri Lankan series, I'd go and commentate there. So I had a lot of that kind of exposure, and then obviously working for SuperSport. I loved working for SuperSport. It was nice because it was at home. You could work for them, but it didn't work out between us, sadly. One of the last few games that I commentated was that 438 game, the famous 438 one. And so I was one of the commentators, one of the 5 commentators there. But it's sad it didn't work out, because it got to a place where, in a stage where I come from a background and a belief that I call it as it is, and I really try and see it as I see it and speak about it as I see it. And I just used to feel there were lots of restrictions. Not say this, be careful of that, don't do this, don't do that. And it got to that space where there was a lot of unhappiness and animosity. Both of us couldn't agree on many things there. So I walked away, and there wasn't a lot. It was a lot of bad blood between SuperSport and myself at that time. And sadly, that is perpetuated. Still to this day, I don't think SuperSport want me involved in anything. They try and keep me off their screen as much as possible. But be that as it may, I'm comfortable with that. I did my time and commentated, and I loved it, and I learned a lot. And there were some great shows. I thought Extra Cover was an outstanding show. All those years, Mike Hazeman hosted. I thought it was fantastic. Right. And Pommy and Bun was a dear friend of mine. I love Pom, and I think he does a great job. And I think Polly's a great commentator, and Graham Smith's a wonderful commentator. So I think there's some great commentators now with SuperSport, and they've done some good things in their commentary business. And they play an important role in South African sport, not only cricket but also the rugby as they do. So I moved on, and I'm fortunate I moved on in my life. And I look back on it, and it was a wonderful time. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about cricket, a lot about commentary. I understand that business very well. I understand the game. So, I was a selector, a South African cricket selector as well. So I've had a really all-round from as a player, managing the players, putting the contracts together, commentating in the game, traveling around the world. I've had a full circle. In cricket, I've had a very blessed life in cricket. So, somebody doesn't want me to commentate for them. Well, that's also fine. I'm comfortable with that in my skin now.
Would you ever want to be involved with the cricket again in some way or form?
I do. I am involved in a couple of ways. I certainly help, and I give some advice where I can to my dear young friend Heinrich down at the Dolphins. He's the CEO. So I like to think I have some bit of a help there. But I've linked a lot to a project that I've got going, and I've got a group of young black guys that are about 30 of them, all young kids between the age of 9 and 15 down the road from me. And we've set up a thing called the Highway Cricketers. I found them playing on cricket on the highway, and I've got them together. We've got a little academy thing going. I've got Natal Cricket involved in that, and I love looking after these young guys. You know, they're small, they're learning the game, and I can put something back into them, into the township. And it extends more than just the cricket; it's their lives. My wife Stella and I are intricately involved in their life, from helping the coach, taking them to Kingsmead, supplying them food, making sure they got clothing, looking after their lives. I've set up quite nicely a little system here, very close to me, at Sazela Cricket Ground, where I've got permission from Ilova Sugar. They've given me the ground now. We fixed up the change rooms. We're building some nets, and hopefully, when the lockdown ends, we'll get back into the swing of things there. And we're starting to see one or two young guys that are starting to come through, that are playing in the Natal schools teams. You know, it's a great thing to be able to take a young guy from the township, he lives in a shack with from a very poor family, and take him to Mr. Price and buy clothes for him so that he can go on a cricket tour, and give him some money, put him on the right road, and oversee him and help him where I can, and see then suddenly this young guy blossoming and growing and becoming like a leader for his young guys on the side of the highway here. You know? So if I can do that, then I see that as my contribution to putting back in the game. I like that. I've taken them all to Kingsmead on a night. I showed them the ground, showed them the night lights. You know, some of them haven't been even into a shopping centre. You know, walking up an escalator, big issue.
Yeah.
For us, you know. So that's my side of it, where I can now. So I like to think I'm not out of it, you know. And I still speak to Mark Boucher a lot. He'll phone me and chat to me about things and what I think about this and that. And selection, maybe. I sometimes talk to Graham, and so from that point of view, I'd like to stay involved. But from a cricketing point of view, at the hierarchy, at the moment, Cricket South Africa, I'm glad Jog Falls there. I think he's going to do an outstanding job. Great appointment of Graham Smith. But there's so many issues going down there, Cricket South Africa and the cricketers of South Africa, Saka. It's a continuous mess, and I don't think it's the place for me to be in now. Too outspoken for that.
Yeah, well, I think sometimes we do need a bit of that, but unfortunately, the way of the world isn't much accommodating for
I'm a liberalist.
That are too outspoken. Yeah, you know, I think
other people to talk. They must listen as well.
Yeah, exactly, and I think the world is way too sensitive these days for not to have people like that. Honestly, that's it needs sometimes a bit of hard talking and straight talking, so there's nothing wrong with that. And I mean, at the end of the day, you're only doing it because you're passionate about the game and it's something that you love. There's no other reason. So don't worry, I find myself in that same boat when it comes to rugby. And thankfully, I wasn't a professional or something of note. That's why they don't listen to me. But sometimes, you do hit the nerve where it matters. Pat, let's touch on who Pat at home and the leisure side of Pat Symcox. You've mentioned that you love playing a round of golf. I don't know if this is still true. Obviously, with lockdown, it might be a bit of a problem. But you played off a single handicap at some stage. Do you still play off a single handicap?
Yeah, I do. I've been a single-figure golfer for probably 20 years. So I think I'm a 7 at the moment. I was a 5 or a 4 at one stage. I've gone down to a 7. And my golf club that I belong to, Selborne, is just down the road from me. So that's my home course, and it's a beautiful course. And I play along. There's so many great golf courses on the south coast here. From here right through Port Shepstone Country Club. You've got Selborne, you've got Tondoni. So we've got some wonderful golf courses, notwithstanding the wild coast as well. So if you're a golfer, living on the south coast is like paradise. So that's part of life. Although in the last while it's taken a bit of a dip, I must say. Over the last while, myself and my wife Estelle, we've found ourselves leaning more to conservation and wildlife, and we've become we like to bird watch, and we like to do photography, and now we spend a lot of time camping. I'm an outdoor camping guy. I've got a 4x4 outdoor or an off-road caravan, which we go to the Kalahari, and we spend a month or 2 at a time in the bush. We love the bush. We love going to Kruger. We love camping in wild, different places. We don't like going to caravan resorts with thousands of people, but we like to get away. So that's been our passion in the last while, and I'm loving it. And together we found something as my wife and I just love being in the bush and taking photos and spending time together. So I like that, but at the same time, I've got to balance out our business. It's quite a sizable real estate company that we the biggest on the South Coast, and we do quite a lot of work. I've got a fantastic manager. He looks after the show for me, and my son-in-law runs our water business. So I just try and keep a hand on that. And I love being at home. I've always been a homing pigeon. I'm not a guy that likes to go out. I'm blessed with my wife and I have been blessed. We've traveled around the world. There's not many places that I haven't been to. So my traveling out of South Africa is limited. I'm not really interested in going. I'd rather go and sit under a tree somewhere in a game reserve, far away from people, than be walking around somewhere in Europe. That doesn't appeal to me. So we found that space for ourselves, and we love it. I've done a bit of fly fishing in my life. I like that as well. I live right on the beach. I don't do much fishing. But just being a pigeon is for me now something that I treasure. And I'm getting a lot of pleasure out of that.
Tell me your love of music. I mean, I know you can play a bit of guitar. What kind of music do you listen to?
I played the guitar for 20 odd years. I started when I was playing cricket. I still play.
Okay.
I love music. I get it from my mom. My mom was a fantastic musician, and I love listening to music. I've got big speakers. I listen to them nice and loud. I'm very good friends with all the musicians in South Africa. I appreciate them for their music. Steve Hofmeyr is a great friend of mine. From a music point of view, I admire his skill, his ability to sing. As with Bok, I love Bok, and he's singing, fishing. I love Kurt.
Yeah.
He does his business. So I've become really good friends with a lot of the musicians. I love them. I love watching them. I never miss a show on a Friday night. On a Saturday night, we still watch them. So I watch and listen to a lot of music. I love it. And that's a hobby of mine.
And
I also collect cricket books as well, by the way. I also collect cricket books. I also collect a lot of cricket books. I've got over 2,500 cricket books. So I'm a cricket book collector. Yeah. So over the many years, I've assembled quite a nice collection of cricket books. And quite
Have you read all of them?
I've read them all. There's no books that I don't have or read, and I love each one. So I'm an avid reader. I get up every morning at 4 o'clock, and my alarm goes off every day at 4 o'clock, and I get up and I read for probably 2 hours. In the evenings, I read as well. I try and read it half an hour every night. So I've been an avid reader my whole life. I read a lot.
So Pat, I want to ask you if you might just to close off with maybe share some stories from your cricketing days. I see Ravi's got a thing that he's asking about. Tell us about the incident in Australia where a spectator hazed the team, and then you invited him for a net session.
Yeah, I don't remember that too well, but I do remember it happening. This guy was abusing us behind the nets, and I kept saying, well, why don't you come and have a knock? And then said, come in and have a bat. And we ended up bowling to him and trying to hit him. But yeah, I've had some wonderful times. I mean, the era of Hansi's era was an era where we got up to a lot of mischief and good things, in Sri Lanka. I can remember Fani and I shared a room for many years. And we were we'd in Sri Lanka. I remember buying a fish and at the market and bringing it back to the hotel and sticking it in the air vent. And Alan Donald and Richard Snell were sharing a room, so we got into their room and put a whole fish in the air vent on top, and we closed it again and left it there in behind the aircon. And it wasn't long that we saw on the balcony, we saw all their shoes being packed outside, all their training shoes, all their bowling boots, everything was being packed outside on the veranda. I thought, what are you guys doing? Hey, they reckon, the shoes are smelling in this room, and terribly, man. And we didn't say anything. And eventually, after a couple of days, they were going down to the hotel reception and saying, listen, they need to change the room. There's a hell of a smell in here. And they came in. And they couldn't change the room because the hotel was full. And only afterwards it came out that Fani and I put a fish in the air conditioner. So we had a lot of pranks along the way. I mean, we put sleeping tablets in people's drinks, and we threw
Really?
crackers. We had, I can write a book on the issues that we did around the world, and we had a lot of fun. And in those days, you could do it. And I think that social media now has changed it a little bit. But there's still time. There's still place for good, clean fun between the guys,
Yeah, yeah,
we had fancy dress parties. We used to be on tour in India and as a team to make sure we stayed not bored with hotels. Every other night we'd have a fancy dress with between
okay,
us guys. We had some fun there. Guys dressing up on different nights. We'd have a fancy dress, and everybody had to come dressed up differently. And so we kept things going in that time, and we had some really fun-loving guys and some
yeah,
young guys out the way, and obviously England, places like that. So over my time, I think I was very blessed to not only play the game for a long time, and I think I played first class cricket. I started when I was 77 and I retired in 2000, I think. So that was 23 years that I was able to be involved in the domestic cricket scene in one way or another. That's a long time. It's a hell of a long time, actually, I think about it.
yeah, yeah,
And then playing international cricket for 7 or 8 years, travel around the world, go on many tours. I was blessed to have that opportunity, then commentating the game, travel around the world. And so I've had an extreme amount of good stuff
yeah,
from cricket. It's given me a lot of pleasure in my life. And I've tried to put back and be true to the game. I always tell people, if you look after your sport, whether it's cricket or rugby or whatever, if you look after it, somehow it'll look after you.
yes,
And so I've been very blessed to have met so many people, from the Prime Minister in Australia wanting me to come and live in Australia. I've met the Queen a couple of times. I've met
oh wow,
some amazing sportsmen around the world. Gone to Wimbledon's, gone to MCG, watched the tennis, met all the tennis stars, played golf with everyone at the great golf courses. What more do you want in your life than having done all
yeah,
that? So when I sit back at home and I'm running my little business and we're sitting under a tree and we're watching good stuff and we're
yeah,
chatting, I've got some good friends, and I go to my local golf course, I'm just happy. I've been able to see as much as I can and do as much as I could in my lifetime. I've got a couple of goals still to achieve that I'd like to see, but I've been very blessed to have sport give me a lot in my life.
yeah. I was actually going to ask you, what are your hopes and dreams going forward?
Well, obviously there's a couple of personal ones along the way, but
Mm.
I think as a human being, you always want your family to be settled and happy, and I think you want to get yourself into a position where you can help others. I think at the end of the day, I think we all get measured one day. It's my belief that you all get measured one day for what you did for your fellow man. So I think that the more I can get myself into a position to do more for others, I think that's a fulfilling end of your life. The winter of your life, the last 20 years, is where you start to be able to give back to the many people in different aspects, whether it's advice, knowledge. It's not only about financial or guidance. So I find that in my current business at Remax, where we sell property to people, it's not about selling a property. It's about sometimes seeing somebody change their lifestyle for better, where they are better. So I see that often as a help along the way. Young sportsmen, my own family. I've got a little granddaughter girl that I love, and see them grow and grow a little business for them, and then just grow my own personal relationship with my wife, my friends, my maker. If I can do that along the way, I'm done. So without saying more, but I got a lot of fun to have. I mean, obviously I got a lot of wine to drink. I got a lot of music to listen to. I want to become a better guitarist. I want to become, better at golf. There's a couple of things. I want to catch some more fish. I want to see better birds. But as a person overall, I think I've been very blessed to have a very fulfilled life, and I hope I can continue that, and my health can help me to help others along the way now.
Geez, Pat, thanks for your time, man. I really, really appreciate this hour that you've spent with us and sharing some stories and moments. It's been really an honor to share this with you, and thanks for your time. I really do appreciate it. And I hope you guys are blessed and stay safe, as they would say. Yeah, like I said, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, and well done on what you're doing. I know that the likes of Quibus Visser and all of them have enjoyed being on your show, and I hope people see it is for its worth. And I'm sure there's sponsors out there that may tag on to you. I think you're doing a good thing, and who
Thanks
knows
so
where you
much.
can end up. Just keep doing what you're doing. Believe what you're doing. Take care.
Thanks so much, Pat. I really appreciate that. It really means a lot. Stay safe, as I said, and hopefully we'll see each other one day somewhere in the world. Who knows?
Thank you. Take care.